Hey guys, what's going on? So I wanted to go over once again my take from the PTR. What can expect it from Necro going into Season 6 as it stands right now. Full disclaimer, like last time, we know there's going to be changes. We already know that some of the content's outdated, and there's already changes they're going to be making. So as it stands right now, once again, State of Necro is not looking that great compared to other classes. Overall, the state of Necro, though, however, is better than it was last season going into Season 6. Um, Even with the stat squish, we're able to substantially put out some crazy numbers with a couple builds. There have been a couple really nice developments through this PTR that we've seen. Bloodwave's doing incredible. Surge is actually even stronger than it was in Season 5. But once again, as it stands right now, what you're watching the gameplay of is, once again, Overpowered Bone Spirit. So for the third season in a row, the strongest build that Necro has is going to be Overpowered Bone Spirit. I'll go through this build here in just a little bit, but overall, the state of Necro is just really not in a great place. While there have been some improvements, Bone Spear is in a much better place than it was last season. Sever's had some improvements. Minions are actually worse off than they were previously. But some other builds are really starting to come forward, and a lot of that's going to be some really hidden builds. There's some Shade Mist builds that are doing some crazy stuff. The new helmets, some people are building around the Unmaker, and they've been doing some good stuff. There's been a couple of builds put together with the new Affliction key passive that has been doing a lot of damage. So overall, there's been a lot of changes. Now, the biggest thing that has really come out of the PTR is that for our ultimates, Soul Rift is really taking over. Soul Rift is doing incredible things. You get the vulnerable triggers, you get the extra essence, you get free barrier, which means you don't have to rely on an aspect slot to use Bone Storm to get your barrier with that. You get it from the same ultimate that you're getting the Vuln and Essence Tune from, which frees up the ability to use Tyraels, which is the biggest defensive slot item we can get. So the new ultimate is really strong. But that kind of goes back to some things that a lot of other people have been talking about for Necro. We just don't have a big variety. The fact that every single build in our arsenal, except for Bloodwave, which is also an ult, is better serviced by using the new Soul Rift ultimate. So this just kind of goes back to the whole conversation about Necro's variance and the skills, and our skill tree is just so much subpar compared to other classes. Now, that being said, the new Soul Rift is incredible. The fact that we get, like I said, vulnerable, essence, barrier gen, all while getting damage on top of that is just an incredible tool in our kit. New Affliction key passive, again, I don't know why we would use any other key passive for most builds other than Bone builds using ossified key passive, but it's just so strong. So it's really good. The new tools are cool, but they are so much better than our existing kit. It once again brings up the conversation of how poorly designed the rest of the skills are really for Necromancer. And if you look at our tree, there is a lot of, even though we have a lot of passives, even though we have a lot, it's still less than the other classes. But a lot of our passives just are not and cannot be used, depending on which builds you're using. If you're using a minion list, a substantial amount of our passives, like 6 of our passives, are gone, straight out the window. And if you're using minions, you're using those instead of the other ones. So there's just a lot that is just not able to really sync up together, and there's not a lot of cohesion in the Necro class. So that being said, going into Season 6, kind of my overall takeaways from PTR right now, we do have a few really strong builds. We've got, as said, Bone Spirit's the strongest one right now. This build's pushing upward to 20 billion damage with a consistent, at minimum, about 10 billion DPS. Followed by Blood Wave, which is doing some incredible numbers, upwards of like 7 to 10 billion damage. Blood Surge is then right behind that. And currently, and a huge disclaimer on this next one that I'm going to say, the disclaimer is, Wither is still uncapped, even though for the past few months it's supposed to have been capped. So Ebon Piercer is right behind Surge. Those are the 4 that have the confirmed Pit 100 clears already. Now, the thing with Ebon Piercer is not only is it currently uncapped and we're able to get upwards of 4,500 int, um, that means at minimum we're sitting at 3,000 int over what we're supposed to be capped at. And they buffed Wither, which means as it stands right now, with that much int, you are guaranteed to hit a Wither crit or the Wither proc every single dot you hit. So that's not supposed to be. It's supposed to cap out at 45%. So we're getting the additional damage while at the same time getting a guaranteed 100% crit chance, whatever you want to call it, the activation chance of Wither. So Ebon Piercer and any other dot build is vastly outperforming the way it should be. And that brings me up to my next topic with the state of the Necromancer. Shadow builds are going to cease to exist. And I say that because the Ebon Piercer build struggles to clear a Pit 100. Even though it can, it struggles to do so with the fact that Wither's uncapped. Why they have this desire to cap Wither, I don't understand, because it is effectively killing the Shadow side of Necromancer. Considering that the Pit build is struggling to do it with a 100% activation of Wither, which is supposed to be 45%, and really just an insane amount of damage over what it's actually going to be doing on live. So the state of Necro is really just not that great still. Like I said, minions took a hit, and Shadow itself is just going to cease to exist. So that's my take on it. I think there's a lot of things that need to change to make Necro really stand out next to the other classes. All the other classes got some really cool changes. And I don't think we necessarily got nerfed with the stat squish. The fact that we're still being able to put... we have 3 separate builds that are doing 5 billion plus damage. Is still pretty substantial for the class. So overall, I'm not impressed. I think we have a lot of work to do to get up there. But we'll see what the changes again. And my disclaimer, we know things are going to change. So hopefully they are listening. And when it comes to what needs to be changed and what really doesn't need to be, like Wither just does not need to be capped. It just doesn't. It's going to shut off all of our shadow builds. So thanks for watching. That's my state of the current PTR. I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. And then here shortly I'm going to go through the stats and stuff on this build, the skills and Paragon and so forth. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Alright, so let's go through the gear real quick. As you can see here, I still have 3 legacy items on, as well as a 750 item, and still being able to push this through and do this kind of damage. So you can expect that this build's going to do well over 20 billion damage. So to start, we're of course using Shaco. We do want the CDR on it. It's pretty much a bare minimum requirement. You need to triple hit your CDR. You do not necessarily need the G8 one, but you needed to triple credit and get to your 49% there. The great addition to having Soul Rift is we can slot Interiors, which gives us a substantial amount of resistances, but also gives us a lot more damage reduction. And it also increases our elemental resist on the top end, so we can sit at over 80% resistance. So this is a great little addition. Yes, we do lose a little top end damage from not being able to use the Enter Macabre here, but it's really cool because it does provide a substantial amount more defense for us. For the gloves, we're using core skills, of course, with attack speed and max life. You can have int here instead of max life, which would be even more damage. And we're using Serration there. For the Blood Moon, of course, you want your passive to be as high as possible. The rest of it doesn't matter. Just try to get your max life G8 if possible above all other skills. Still using the same boots. These are legacy items because I have not been able to loot anything better since they didn't give it to us in the PTR. But same thing here, you want to make sure you hit your Bone Prison or Bone Skills for 2 minimum. It is helpful to get the 3rd one for Bone Prison. And you want this high on your Splinter chance as possible. For the weapon, we are using, again, a Essence on Kill here. And you're going to want to hit that a couple times. And at minimum, you need to make sure that you get your Bone Splinters chance to cast twice at 100%. So the higher your roll is, the better chance of getting it with only 1 temper or masterworking. And we're using Imprisoned Spirits here. Banishment Talismans, of course, you want your core skill and attack speed, preferably both on them G8, and you want as high a roll as you can on your passive. For your first ring, we're using Sacrificial here. You want Rapid Ossification and your Macabre damage, which is the highest roll of any of the others there. Essence on Kill, attack speed, and int. And then we're using Starless for the build now, because we get the massive amount of crit strike chance, and our attack speed with core skills. So if we also slotting in, and I'm still playing around with these runes, but I really like these two rune words for this set. We are using the one that grants Petrify, which gives us a massive amount of critical strike damage, and we're also using the bone, or the war cry from the barbarians. So it's really cool. It gives us more damage and also move speed. So it's a really cool little rune word set. Adds to massive amount of damage on the front end. For the Book of the Dead, it is going to be the sacrifice for a crit chance. We are sacrificing bone for more overpower, and we're sacrificing golems for more crit strike damage. One thing to note, real quick, for PTR, this is not showing appropriately. This should be at 24%, but because it's not, it's only showing at 16%, even with Stack and Momentum Mori on. For our skill tree, I'm still playing around completely with this. I don't know exactly where I'm going to land, but I'm pretty happy with things right now. We've got 2 into Bone Splinters just to get into our core tree. We're using 3 into Unliving Energy for our max essence, 3 into Imperfectly Balanced for more damage, 2 into Hued Flesh, just drop 2 in there for now. Do have 1 into Blood Mist, going all the way to create a corpse while we're in Blood Mist, just helps us to get the first engagement going. I have 1 into Necrotic Fortitude, just to keep up some extra barrier. 3 into Titan's Fall, because we are fortified a substantial amount of time. With Necrotic Carapace, we have Spiked Armor for the additional armor to get us to Armor Cap. This is a really neat little boost for us now, considering that we only need to be at 1,000 armor. It helps you get there very quickly. 1 into Bone Prison, 1 into Enhanced, and 1 into the Essence back when you cast it on enemies. 3 into Death's Embrace for more damage and DR. We have 2 into Move Speed, 3 into Amp Damage. Do not use any into Decrepify, since we get that from Shaco. We don't need to slot that in, and all we're doing is casting it to get the curses going and amplify damage. For Corpse Tendrils, we're going out and getting the Blood Orbs, because we're using Blood Begets Blood for the massive multiplier from it. 1 into Necrotic, so we can get the extra Fortify. Max out as much as you can for Bone Spirit. We're currently sitting at 26. We have a little more room to grow there. And going down here for the max Essence regen, or the Essence regen when we hit the mobs. 3 into Serration for extra crit chance. 3 into Compound Fracture for more crit damage. Going into 3 for Rapid Ossification, which allows us with the increased ranks from our Tempers. We can get the 4 seconds, which keeps our Bone Prism at 0 cooldown. And then 3 into Avulsion for the extra damage to Vuln. 3 into Finality, which gives us 15% damage increase after we cast our ultimate, which we are casting all the time. 3 Momentum Mori, 3 into Standalone. Currently just 1 into Soul Rift. We might put a little more into there for more cooldown reduction, so we could take 2 out of our movement speed and get that cooldown to another second lower. And then going into getting here all the way to the end, so we get both the vulnerable as well as we get the increased damage. Our key passive, of course, we're using Ossified Essence, and then 3 into Inspiring Leader for more crit chance. For the Paragon, I'm not 100% finished with this, still playing around, but of course main board with Eliminator, because we have a lot of int we can pick up here. Then we're going to Bone Graft, and we're using Essence here with as much crit as we can, into Blood Begets Blood with our Exploit. We've got our Frailty board, which we're slotting in Dominate here to get all the willpower nodes we can. And then finally we have our Bloodbath node with Corporeal in this slot here. And that's the build. This will probably change a little bit. Again, we just tested it for 2 days and pretty happy with it. So thanks for checking it out. I do think this is going to be definitely the strongest build we've got for Necro this season. There are a couple other variants. There's one that does a little bit less damage. It's a machine gun type setup. It's doing pretty good. It is clear at 100 also. It's a little bit slower, but it's doing great. It has a little bit less defenses because they're slotting in Bone Storm with the Macabre Chestplate. But overall, I think either one of them is great if you like either version. Bone Spirit itself is going to be our top dog. So thanks for watching. Catch y'all after the PTR and look into Season 6. Thanks again, guys.